All right, everyone. We've heard some funny news today, actually. Apparently, Dick Cheney's funeral is today, by the way. Donald Trump is not invited. Neither is J.D. Vance. I was thinking to myself, look, Donald Trump didn't even offer a condolence when Dick Cheney died. What makes you think he gives a damn if he's invited to his funeral? Dick Cheney is directly associated with and adjacent to a number of people that tried to not only destroy Donald Trump, but his entire family, as well as all of his corporate holdings and everything else to try to completely dismantle his very existence. If you were to treat me in such a way, I probably would not show up at your funeral. Some people are saying, well, Donald Trump lacks decorum with this. There's no decorum necessary. He doesn't have to go to somebody's funeral to see their bloated body just laying there. What the hell is the purpose? He shouldn't offer his condolences. Dick Cheney, warmongering asshole. It's good that he's dead. It's good that he's finally gone. He's no longer a cancer upon our world. I have more respect for Trump for not attending. The idea he wasn't invited is completely disingenuous. He never sought to go to the funeral in the first place. He is slightly busy, presidenting and things like that. I don't really think that he has time to go and pretend to care that one of his main political adversaries and one of the worst people ever in U.S. politics has croaked. I don't think that he really has time for that. And I don't blame him. And J.D. Vance wasn't invited either. Yeah, you can imagine J.D. Vance, he shows up at the funeral. What's he going to do? Spit in the coffin or something like that? That's basically what Dick Cheney's dead body deserves. So I think it's probably best that they not go anyway to avoid some sort of incident. The fact is that the Cheney family has been TDS suffering for quite some time. You've got Liz Cheney, of course, the forgettable one. Yeah, everyone has so far forgotten about her. You have Dick Cheney, who's only his only success in life was the fact that finally, after he had his first thrombo, he managed to actually gain a heart. Uh, one that worked, for quite some time, actually. I mean, it's definitely a success story within medicine. It happens when you're rich and powerful. Dick Cheney doesn't deserve to be remembered. Of course, George W. and Al Gore and all of these other morons are going to go to the funeral. Of course, they're going to celebrate him. Celebrate him as some great American patriot or something like that. Dick Cheney was never a fucking patriot. The most wise thing that he ever did in his life was in 1994 when he warned that it was a bad idea to go into Iraq because it would become a quagmire and the U.S. would get bogged down and inevitably we would suffer huge amounts of attrition. But that was wise. That was the 1990s, though. A few years later on, he suggested, yeah, just kill them all. We're going to go after Saddam and stuff like that. It's going to be a real victory. Ultimately, about the only saving grace is that Iraq at least has a development index now. I mean, unlike Afghanistan after the Biden withdrawal, or Libya after Hillary Clinton, or Syria after the Arab Spring uprising and subsequent deposition of Bashar al-Assad, unlike those, Iraq is relatively stable. Again, you can go to Iraq, you can go to Baghdad and get a sandwich, basically. There are cars there and stuff. This is the fact that Iraq is actually the success story of the last 20 years of the U.S. in combat is ultimately very sad. Well, 25 years now, I suppose it would be. You didn't invite him to the funeral? Who cares? Trump's not going to attend. He doesn't give a shit about Dick Cheney being dead. Nobody else does, by the way, if they're sane. All of these politicians showing up, they're doing it basically so they can get a photo op, they can look solemn. Oh, I'm so glad I'm so sad that he's dead. Freudian slip there, by the way. I'm so sad that he's dead. He was such a great man. And they'll pretend like none of the shitty things that he did during his life are actually meaningful. And this happens a lot at funerals. Somebody is a complete raff bastard, and people show up at the funeral and give their platitudes about how great they were, all of their wonderful qualities and stuff. What wonderful qualities with Dick Cheney? Other than the fact that he was a Republican that accepted that his daughter was a lesbian, he's really got nothing to go on. Iraq, that worked well. Afghanistan, that worked even better. Wow, what a wonderful follow-up, by the way, by the Biden administration. Cheney lived long enough to have to see that happen. Okay, I guess I can have a little bit of sympathy for him for that one, because he was probably shaking his head, being like, what the hell are you doing? I have a feeling that there was some, hatchets that were not quite buried with regards to that particular campaign. Dick Cheney. Yeah, standing in the way of the law-abiding citizens of the United States by being associated with the people that were trying to censor us for years and years. And while I can't give you credit for that, I can't really think of anything else that Dick Cheney did. He was also kind of an absentee vice president when you think about it, a little bit like Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris was made border czar. She can disclaim that particular title, but that's the one that was being used by the legacy media when they thought that she would succeed. Uh, and she went to the border for a photo op. That's all that happened. Otherwise, she was mostly absent because Joe Biden kept her in the closet as sort of a bad joke, I suppose. I think that Jill probably had something to do with it. Dick Cheney was kind of the same. He was the person who would be sort of in the background, leering in a malevolent manner, to try to be the Palpatine, so to speak, so that people would think that Bush was more innocuous. He could play the chucklehead, and he was very good at acting the chucklehead and still is. And Dick Cheney would basically take the rap. If something bad is going on, it's Cheney's fault. It's not George W.'s fault. Even though the W is the one that's actually signing off on bills and making the decisions, he didn't get as much flack. He got a little bit less pressure because Dick Cheney happened to be there. This was the entire reason, by the way, that he was particularly chosen for the role of vice president. Why would Trump want to go to his funeral, though? Why would you want to go to the funeral of a person who attempted to dismantle your entire family, destroy their livelihood, and render you destitute and in jail? I don't think that I would want to do that, so I don't blame Trump at all. The idea of him not being invited, he wasn't invited because he showed no proclivity towards wanting to go in the first place. So this isn't really a snub. This isn't some epic own or something like that. This is Donald Trump saying, I don't give a fuck about this dude. Yeah, he's dead. It's a corpse. So, put him in the ground or cremate him or whatever the hell you have to do. But, count me out. That's about all. Peace out.